everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jody Anderson-Duquette, the Executive Director here at Workamper News. And for those of you who may not be familiar with us, we are the original resource for work camping. Since 1987, we've been helping people go where they want, when they want, and stay as long as they want. We're passionate about seeing our members succeed at the work camping and RV lifestyle, and we know that success comes from a well-rounded education and experience. That's why we're excited to affiliate with passionate and knowledgeable experts in the RV industry. TechnoRV has been part of the RV community since 2009. It is now operated by a full-time RV couple, Eric and Tami Johnson, and a small office team based in Alabama. They not only use the products that they sell, but they've gone the extra mile to research and really get to know the companies that make these technology products for RVers. So they're assured that they are offering something that's going to be good for their fellow RVers. Through their research and their life experiences, they've learned a lot and enjoy sharing their knowledge with those of us in the RV industry. So not only is today's presenter someone that we know is an expert and we're excited to hear from, but is also a good friend. So with that, Mr. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Jody, how are you today? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is going to be great. Let's learn about some RV tire stuff.
Do we want to just jump right in? I'm good with that.
Let's do it, unless you want to talk a little bit about TechnoRV first, because I know you guys have been at this for a while and really enjoy it so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we have owned TechnoRV since 2015, and we are full-time RVers. And so, to your point, we have a lot of experience with RVing, and in addition to that, we have great relationships with all of our suppliers. So all of the knowledge that I've kind of gained over the years has been through experience and through experts in the industry, really. You know, like if I learn something about tire safety, which we'll be talking today, then the stuff that I've learned from like some of the greatest tire engineers like that there is. So that excites me to be able to share that type of things with RVers. I think everybody will learn something today. If we have some novices out there, I know they'll learn something. Even the experts, I hope that I'll be able to teach them something today as well. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. I did want to point out to everybody that when I started RVing full time and trying to figure out my way out on the road, that one of the first things that we did is that we joined Workamper. So I wanted to, I am a fellow Workamper, so I appreciate everybody jumping on the call, and I am one of you. I'm a Workamper, so and happy to be that way. So let me go ahead and pull my screen up here.
Super. Yeah, and I'll just mention too to everybody who's online live with us, we should have time for a few questions towards the end. So listen in to what Eric's got to share with us. If you guys do think of questions in the meantime, go ahead and type those in, and we'll try to hit some of them as best we can. And if not, we'll get you forwarded to the right person to get that answered for you. So type those into your control panel that you see there, and once Eric goes through his presentation, then we'll hit on those. So all right. Go ahead, Eric.
And Jody, can you see my PowerPoint here?
Yes. Most common RV insurance claims. Yep, it's moving and going. All right. Green.
So once again, hello Workampers, and thank you for having me. I'm going to walk you through a presentation that I do at RV shows across the country. So you're kind of getting exactly what you would see if you visit us at an RV rally or show. And this one is titled Taking Your Tire Safety to the Next Level. And who doesn't want to do that, right? And so you know, before I started RVing, I really didn't think much about my tires. If they looked like they had air in them and they were rolling, I kind of felt like I was good. But whenever I started RVing, I started out towing a 36-foot fifth wheel, eventually transitioned into a Class A RV, and that quickly changed my mindset about tires and what I needed to be considering while out on the road, because everything, of course, is riding on my tires. So the first thing I want to talk about is like, what are the most common RV insurance claims? And I'm sure there's some things that might come to mind. These may surprise you, they may not surprise you. But I've got like the top three here. And number one is windshield damage. And so Tami and I went to Alaska last summer, and I am proud to say that I only got one of those rock chips that you see there. And when a lot of people have to change their windshields out after that trip, I was fortunate enough to only have one chip. So that is the number one claim. The number two claim, you may or may not have seen this in an RV park. People have their awnings out, the wind picks up, away goes the awning. And so that is another big claim. But the third one is tire related issues. And I wanted to point this out because when you think about insurance claims and that the number three is tire related issues, like people aren't calling their insurance company up and saying, hey, I blew a tire. Could you please, pay for me a new tire? Because the tire itself is not actually a claim that you can make, but what you can make is the damage that is caused by a tire that starts to break up. If you spend enough time online on Facebook groups or forums, certainly you've seen these type of pictures that you see on the screen here of a tire coming apart, really causing a lot of damage. It can be very dangerous because a lot of times propane lines run right over the top of the wheel well, so that can be damaged, and it can cause thousands of dollars of damage whenever you have a blowout. And so it would seem to me that if that's in the top three of RV related claims on insurance, that maybe we would take a little bit more care of them. But the truth of the matter is that tires are the most neglected maintenance item on an RV. People tend to take their RVs in and get service work done on them and check their batteries and different things like that. But these tires seem to be like something that RVers tend to take for granted. And there are some things that we can do as RVers to ensure that we get maximum life and safety out of our RV tires. And I definitely want to get into that. So what are the most common issues that adversely affect your RV tires? Number one, most RVers run 100% of their maximum load that they should be carrying on their tires 100% of the time. So if you think about a passenger vehicle and the tires that are on just a passenger vehicle, those are rarely overloaded. They are designed to carry much more than if you've got an SUV or whatever type vehicle you have. You've got a lot of headroom usually on the tires that you have on those. Well, what happens with RVers is we get out there and we like taking our stuff with us, and our stuff requires us to carry additional weight. And as we travel, we continue to pick up more stuff because that's just what we do as RVers. And there are companies out there that actually weigh RVs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. And what they found is that when they start weighing RVs, they find that most RVers are running 100% of load 100% of the time. So the tires in these cases are being kind of stretched to the max of what they're designed to do all the time. Intermittent usage. So what do we do as RVers? We drive, we sit, we drive, we sit. We drive, we sit even longer. And this intermittent usage is actually not the way tires were designed to be used. So the engineers that design tires, they designed them to be moving, to be rolling. There are a lot of different compounds that make up these tires. And in order for those compounds to work properly within a tire, that tire needs to be bending and flexing and moving and keeping those compounds moving within the tire, because if you sit too long, those compounds can actually start leaching out of your tire. So you may have had a situation at some point where you've sat stationary for a long period of time, and when you've pulled off, maybe there was a big black patch on the concrete, and that could be those compounds leaching out of the tire. So intermittent usage is actually not good for tires, and it is very common for RVers to have intermittent usage. Poor maintenance practices. This is just people that have RVs and they do not inspect their tires, which we'll be talking more about that, and put the proper air pressure in them and do the things that you're supposed to do from a maintenance standpoint to keep those tires in the condition that they're supposed to be in. No poor driving habits out there, right, everybody? So we often find that right side tire damage is the most common, because that's the turn that tends to give RVers the most problem. It's the one where you're closest to the curve. So that may be driving too fast. All of these things contribute to your tires getting an early funeral. And so other issues that can affect the life of your tire: road surface and terrain. Hey, no bad roads out there in the US, right? You see this picture here with all the potholes. Some of them are just completely just jarring whenever you hit them. And so that is obviously not going to be good for your tires. Ambient temperature. We're going to talk a little bit more here in a bit about how heat is the enemy of a tire. And so heat on a tire can be generated in a number of ways, and one of them is just the ambient temperature outside. I find it interesting that if you watch the news cycle in, say, Arizona in the middle of the summer, one of their big news stories that always comes up is more and more people on the side of the road with blowouts, and a lot of that has to do with that ambient temperature outside. The good news is that most RVers try to avoid weather that is not something you really want to be a part of at particular seasons. So Tami and I try to avoid being in hot places during the summertime, and most RVers do that. You want to go where it's pretty, right? Worn or damaged parts. So you could have damaged springs, shocks, bearing issues, and this could start wearing on your tires in a way that is not good for the tires. So making sure that your components relating to basically just around the tire, even your axle, again, spring, shocks, those type things, making sure that they are all in tip-top shape is important for your tires. I mentioned vehicle speed earlier. You can always go to a search engine, type in your make and model of your RV tire, get a data sheet on it, and it'll tell you tires actually have a speed limit on them. And so if you exceed that speed limit that the tire is designed for, it doesn't mean that they're going to explode immediately, but it does mean that you are reducing the life on that tire and potentially creating a dangerous situation. So you would want to be aware of that as well. How about loading of the RV and how much we put on those tires? So on this slide here, I want to talk about overloading versus underinflation of a tire, and how to the tire, it doesn't know the difference, right? So overloading and underinflation is pretty much the same thing. And the way we'll demonstrate that is we'll take your RV, and let's say that you did the right thing and you went and had your RV weighed, because that is the proper method to determining the proper pressure for your tire. So let's say that you did that. And let's say your RV was 30,000 pounds. And let's say you applied that 30,000 pounds to the tire inflation chart for your tires. And let's say it said the proper pressure is 100 PSI. Now let's say you travel for a year, and let's say that you start picking up goodies along the way and you start adding things to your RV, and now your RV weighs 34,000 pounds. but you didn't change your tire pressure. So in effect, you are now overloaded and underinflated. So you can see to a tire, it's kind of the same thing. So it's super important to have the proper pressure in your tires. It's probably it is the number one thing that you can do for your tires to make sure that you're properly inflated. Some other important facts: the loads are actually carried by the air pressure, so that when we talk about having proper air pressure, that's because that's what that load is carried by, is the air pressure. And there's only one correct pressure for any specific load that you're carrying. So again, if you have an RV, here's the recommendation. The recommendation is that you go and get your RV weighed. There's different companies that do weighing of RVs properly. And by properly, I mean that you're getting weighed by individual tire position, because RVs are bad about being balanced improperly. So you may have an 800-pound slide on one side of your RV and a 200-pound slide on another side of your RV. And you may put things in your RV bays heavier to one side than another. This is very common for RVers, and something that you should be aware of is trying to properly load your RV so that the weight is evenly distributed. So when you get weighed correctly, you will get weighed by individual tire position, because you could have one tire that is, say, weighs in at, say, 3,000 pounds, and across that same axle, the other tire could be weighing in at 4,000 pounds because of that, in some cases, improper distribution of the weight. Once you get weighed, then you're going to apply that overall weight across an axle to the tire inflation chart to come up with what your proper PSI is. Every tire manufacturer has tire inflation charts for every tire that they manufacture. So you can go to the website of the particular tire manufacturer that you may have and get that information from there. I think it's very important to do that. Here's why, everybody. Okay. Underinflation causes heat. Heat is the death of a tire. When a tire gets north of 200 degrees, the compounds in the tire start to break down. This breaks down the rubber of the tire. This is when people have blowouts. So here's the scenario. You're driving down the road. You pick up a nail in the tire. You start to have a slow leak, but you don't know it. You're supposed to be at 100 PSI. Now you're at 90. Now you're at 80. Now you're at 70. The temperature on that tire is going to start rising. When that tire hits above 200 degrees, things are going to start breaking down. This is when the blowout happens. Okay? It's the heat that did it, ultimately. The heat is, and that's why we say heat is the death of a tire. And underinflation and ambient temperature are the two things that are the issue there. And of course, ambient temperature, we really don't have any control over unless you just control the environment that you're in. But that low pressure, that is what you have got to control. And what you don't want to do is be in a scenario where you just are running low pressure. It's not due to having a nail in your tire. It's just, you just never knew what the proper pressure was in the first place. If you have not been weighed, the recommendation is to go with the max pressure of what that tire is designed for. And the reason that is because underinflation is worse than overinflation. So that is the recommendation, is to go with the max of the tire and then plan to go get weighed, because that's the key. You got to get weighed. So only when a tire has 100% of its required pressure for its load will it perform at its maximum lifespan. And that's just a little chart here because there's safety issues, and then there's just the idea that, hey, I want my tires to last as long as they possibly can because these things aren't cheap, right? So if you kind of look at this chart and you say, all right, if I'm at 100% of the recommended inflation, then I will get 100% of my tire life based on the inflation side of things. When you start going underinflated, that's really when the life of your tire starts to suffer. We have been to many RV rallies and shows and talked about this type thing, had people go out and check air pressure. I have had people come back in before. One specific example, someone came in and said they went out and checked their tire pressure, and one of their inside dual tires was basically flat, and they didn't know it. And so, you know, obviously now the load is being carried by the other dual on that particular axle. And so he had some problems that he had to deal with. So it's very important to check those pressures on your tires. Here's something interesting. So tire damage is, of course, not self-healing. So let's say you hit a pothole and everything seems to be okay. You didn't have a blowout. It was jarring. You might make the assumption that there was some damage. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. But let's say there was. Let's say you hit a pothole and one of the cords in your tires started to come apart. And then you go down the road, you hit another pothole. So eventually your tire will start to deteriorate to the point that it just can't handle the load anymore and have a blowout. So this is why inspecting of your tires is very important, because you could have tire damage, and because there's this kind of lack of cause and effect many times whenever the tire is damaged, that we kind of have this false sense of security, and when we shouldn't. And so this is whenever tire inspections, which we'll talk about those here in just a little bit, becomes super important. It's something that's so easy to do, but a lot of RVers don't do it, and they miss these signs that they need not miss because it can avoid dangerous situations for them. So I mentioned to you that if you have not been weighed before, that you should really just go with whatever your max cold tire pressure is. This is on your tire. Listen, all of the information that you need about your tires, interestingly enough, is on your tires. There's a lot of information on your tires. I'm not going to go through all of that today, but I did want to point out that it will let you know what your max cold tire pressure is for your tire. And if you have not been weighed, the recommendation is that you do go with whatever that max cold pressure is until you can get weighed, because again, underinflation is worse than overinflation. So if I put it at 80 and when I go get weighed it says, well, you really should be at 75, then it's much better to be a little bit overinflated than driving around underinflated. Okay, every tire has a DOT code on it, and each section of what is on the DOT code means something. I do want to point out that the DOT code is on one side of your tire. So if you walk up to your tire and start looking for this DOT code and you don't see it, that means it's on the inside of that particular tire. And so instead of climbing under there, I would just move to another tire, right? And look at the DOT code on that one, assuming all your tires match. I did want to point out that the birth date of your tire is on the tire. It is the last 4 digits of the DOT code. In this case, 1404 means the 14th week of 2004 is the birthday of this particular tire. On this particular tire, you don't think this tire has problems, do you? All that cracking there, that is this, whoever this is needs to change their tires immediately. Cracking is a sure sign that that your tires are struggling and need to be changed out, at minimum, take it to a tire professional and have them inspect it and see what's going on. This one looks like it's pretty much shot. The birth date on this one, 0708. Again, it just means the 7th week of 2008. Look at that crack. Amazing. If y'all ever see that on my RV, please come knock on my door and let me know, because it will mean I didn't see it myself, because if I saw that, I would change my tires out immediately. Okay, here's something for you all. TireSafetyGroup.com. You can write that one down. It is interesting to go to this site and put your tires DOT code into the site, and it will give you all kinds of information about your tires. So TireSafetyGroup.com. This is what the website looks like. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen that it says enter your tire DOT code. Now, I'm going to go back here and say that means you're going to enter all of that information, that PD, HH, MLOR, the whole thing. You got to enter it all, right? So you're going to enter that right here where it says enter tire DOT code. You're going to click go, and it's going to give you all this information. It is going to tell you the age of your tires, which you could have got that anyway off the birth date on there. It is going to tell you where it was manufactured at and if there's any recalls. I think it's good for everybody to go do this at least once whenever they get their tires. If you get a new RV, if you get a new RV or a used RV, I always recommend that you look at that birth date code on it. Oftentimes that can be used as a negotiating point of getting an RV. I mean, if you're buying a new RV and you look at that birth date code and those tires are a couple of years old, I would probably, well, there's no probably, I wouldn't be happy about that. I would want newer tires than that. These are the things that can happen. And again, even with new RVs, it can happen. I've certainly heard of people that buy a new RV and find out that their tires were 2-3 years old, just like right out of the gate. So that is not the news you want to get. And here's why. On a Class A tire, the lifespan of a Class A tire is 5 to 7 years. But the mileage rating is between 250 to 300,000 miles. Now, this is the big Class A tires, the big 22.5 tires that I'm talking about in this specific example here. You can get 5 to 7 years out of them. But again, the mileage rating is 250 to 300,000 miles. I don't know of any RVer that is running 250 to 300,000 miles in 5 to 7 years. Like if you ran the math on that, they would just never, they would be running all the time. Right? They're not relaxing enough. So oftentimes you will age out your tires before you wear them out. So the RV I'm in right now, my tires just turned 5 years old. So now I got to start watching them, right? They look great. I mean, they look great. And I've got about 65,000 miles on my RV right now on these tires. The tires look great, because they're rated for 250 to 300,000 miles. But guess what? I'm going to end up changing them out here sometime soon, between that 5 and 7 year mark. And it's going to probably hurt my feelings a little bit because they're going to look great, but I'm going to know that, hey, it's these tires have reached kind of their lifespan that I need to go ahead and change these things out. Some people might get a little bit more than this. I mean, if you take care of your tires perfectly, then, you know, maybe you could get a little bit more. But as a rule of thumb, you really got to start watching them at 5. You need to change them out by 7. Now, if you're in a fifth wheel, a bumper pull, those tires are a little bit different. They're rated differently. The mileage rating is different on those. So you need to kind of view those a little bit differently, because you could have, you know, a 30, 40,000 mile tire on it. And that's going to be about, potentially you could wear those tires out. And so you would really need to not only watch the age of them, but also visually inspecting them to see if you're getting any odd type wearing on them. Okay, let's talk about some practical care, everybody. All right, here we go. You gotta inspect your tires, right? So what does that mean? It means you gotta visually look at them. You gotta look for nails. You gotta look for cuts. You gotta look for bulges, cracks, any weathering. We've already looked at a couple of screenshots of that cracking on the tires. That's not good. That warrants an immediate trip to your tire professional to have them inspect that tire to give you the final word on what you need to do with that. Also, you got to make sure that if you have duals that you're looking in between those tires. Sometimes you can have things that get lodged between those dual tires. The easy thing is to just kind of walk around and visually look at the part of the tire that you can see, but if you really want to properly inspect them, you also got to look at the inside. You might have a bulge on the inside of one of those tires. I know it's a little bit of a pain to do, but it can definitely save you, because remember, when tires start getting damaged, it's cumulative. That damage just stays there, and then it takes on more damage. And a lot of times these things will present themselves in a proper routine inspection of your tires. So please inspect your tires before you start traveling. I've already talked about, you got to visually inspect the inside wall of those tires. And again, I've talked about that right side tire damage is often more common than left side tire damage. All right, here's some interesting practical tire information that you may or may not know here. First of all, you got to keep your tires clean. You got to be careful. You don't want to use any petroleum-based type products, any silicone, alcohol type based products. That's not good for the tires. A lot of these products that make your tires all shiny and certainly makes them look good, those are the very things that aren't that great for them. A lot of times they're sticky and causes road grime and different things to stick to the tire. That's not good for them. Okay, so check this one out. Park RVs off of concrete or asphalt, or use a protective pad. Okay, so let me clarify what I mean by this. When me and Tami are traveling, most of the time we're not in one place for very long. We move a lot. Now this year's been a little bit different, but usually we're somewhere for a week, maybe 10 days, and we're off and running again. Okay, so if I am on concrete for that period of time, asphalt, see, asphalt's a petroleum-based product, right? So that's actually, believe it or not, actually not good for a tire to just sit on that for long periods of time. The location that I'm at right now, we've been here for a while just because this year's been kind of goofy with our traveling plans, so we've been a little bit more stationary. If you can put a protective pad in between your tire and that asphalt, then that will help prevent the leaching out of those compounds from your tires onto the asphalt. And so some people use like little placemats. They have those little flexible little cutting boards you could use. So that's what I use. And I had somebody mention to me one time that, I never had to worry about this kind of stuff with my passenger car. Why am I having to worry about this with my RV? And it was a fair question. And the reason is because, again, what do RVers do? We drive and then we sit. Generally, a passenger vehicle, we're on the move all the time, right? But an RV, man, we're just sitting there in one location for long periods of time. That intermittent usage is really something that we need to take more care of. So if you can put something in between your tire and that asphalt or concrete, if you're going to be there for long periods of time, you'll be doing yourself a favor there. Exercise your tires. All right, so again, me and Tami, we never stay anywhere routinely for more than 7 to 10 days. That's plenty of exercise. We're always moving the tires on our RV, but this year has been a bit odd for us. We pulled into where our office is in Mobile, Alabama, and we've been sitting on our RV pad here since, oh gosh, the beginning of March. So we have made it a point to a couple of times since then. And again, a little bit of a pain, right? Because we're not really traveling anywhere, but I need to move those tires. You can get flat spots. Again, if you're not using a pad in between there, you can have those compounds leaching out. So we pull the slides in, pull the jacks up, and we go for a ride. We did it just a couple of weeks ago. We went for a ride for about, I don't know, 45 minutes or so, came back, put it right back on the pad. Because tires are designed to be flexing and bending and moving to keep those compounds active within the tires. So got to exercise those tires if you're going to be sitting for long periods of time. Protect your tires from UV rays. Again, not something you ever worried about in a passenger vehicle because you're always moving around, right? But in an RV, I mean, if you go and you just, the direct UV rays for long periods of time is ultimately not good for tires. A lot of times that's where you can start to get that cracking in tires. And so it's your choice on kind of how you handle this, but it's good to cover the tires. And there's a lot of different products on the market that you can use. And we kind of showed some of these here on the screen here. You got kind of that bag type on that top picture. You got kind of the drapes on the second picture there. That third one is actually a product from a company called MagnaShade, and I actually use that product myself. And it basically helps prevent that UV damage on a tire from when you're just sitting there for long periods of time and those tires are just taking a beating. Again, all these little tips and tricks, if you don't do them, this doesn't mean your tires are gonna immediately blow out. But if you're wanting to extend the life of your tires, then all of these little things can help kind of in conjunction with each other. And that's really all I'm trying to do is give you some tips to help extend the life and safety of your tires. All right, when are we gonna check the pressure on the tires? Well, you wanna do it before a trip, daily before we take off and drive our RV. You want to make sure that your pressure is where it's supposed to be, and you're going to know that because you're going to get your RV weighed, right? You always want to check your tire pressure at the cold tire pressure, okay? Whatever that is that morning before you start moving down the road, that's whenever you want to check your tire pressure. And everything about tire manufacturers and everything that they talk about is 100% always talking about cold tire pressure. So if they're like, hey, here's the max pressure for this tire, they're talking about cold pressure, right? So you want to check that out before the ambient temperature rises and before you really hit the road. And you can expect 12 to 15%, sometimes more, depending on what the ambient temperature is outside. Maybe a little less if it's a little cooler outside, but once those tires start rolling, they're gonna heat up, and you can expect 12 to 15% increase in your pressure as you roll down the road. So I'll go ahead and address a question that we usually get, which is, if my max pressure on my tire is 80 and I'm running at 80, when I start rolling down the road, it runs up to 90. That's above what it says is the max for the tire. Is that okay? And the answer to that is yes, that is okay. Tire engineers, when they put together these tire inflation charts, they're fully aware that when tires heat up, the pressure goes up. So the number that they're given to you is that cold tire pressure. They are aware that you could be running higher than that maximum once your tires heat up. And again, that is okay. Hey, let's talk about leveling blocks here for a little bit. A lot of people use these to level up their RVs, and when they get to a site, some people have the leveling systems that'll get them all level. Some people need to run up on blocks to get level, and so I wanted to show you this real quick. And the main thing that you need to really be aware of here is that you need to make sure the entire footprint of the tire is accounted for with whatever blocks you're using. So if you're using some leveling blocks, then you can see on the screen here where it says, hey, here's kind of the incorrect way to do it. Also keep in mind, if you have dual tires, you need to make sure that you're supporting both the duals with blocks and not just like say the outside one, because that's the easy one to kind of run up. Because if you do that, that one that's up on a block is now accepting more of the load than say the inside dual that's not on a block. So let's make sure that if you look down towards the bottom of the screen where it says kind of the correct way to do this, you'll see that the point here is that you need to make sure the entire footprint of the tire is accounted for with whatever block that you're using. So if you use leveling blocks, just make sure that it's much better for your tires to be supported completely. Okay, I want to talk about tire pressure monitoring systems real quick. So here's the thing. Most tire blowouts are preceded by low pressure, high temperature. Again, you get a nail in the tire, your pressure starts to go down, your temperature starts to go up. Eventually, that temperature goes up to the point to where the tire can't handle it. That's when the blowout happens. So if you could be alarmed at when these conditions start kind of getting out of whack while you're going down the road and give you time to get off the road to deal with whatever the problem is, that would be preferable, right? So that is what a tire pressure monitoring system does. I personally use the TST system. Of course, as Jody said at the start of this broadcast, of course we own TechnoRV and sell this stuff too. But I want to tell you that we're RVers first. We're first and foremost. That's what we love to do. We're full-time RVers, and we absolutely love it. And so we go out and test a lot of these models, pick the one that we think is the best. Somebody could have a different opinion, but as full-time RVers, we stand behind this stuff. So TST is the brand that we use, and here's some of the advantages of having a tire pressure monitoring system. They're certainly ideal for RVers to make sure that you always know your tires info. Whenever I say, hey, you're going down the road, your tire pressure could raise, say, 10 to 12% or 12 to 15%. You wouldn't know that unless you had a tire pressure monitoring system. But while I'm driving down the road, I can, at a quick glance, look at my monitor, and I can see my pressure starting to go up. And certainly if I picked up a nail and the pressure started going down, I would not only see that, but I would be alarmed at that as well by the system. Hey, how about this? No more manually checking your tires before you take off in the morning. So this is a piece of technology that kind of takes that process out of things. The proper thing to do is to check your PSI before you start rolling in the morning. And if you don't have a tire pressure monitor, you need to go out there and put a pressure gauge on it. If you have a tire pressure monitoring system, then you don't have to run around and do that. Now, you still need to inspect your tires for sure, but as far as checking the pressure, this system's going to do that for you. So a good tire pressure monitoring system will give you pressure and temperature of each tire position in real time. So that's what a TST system does. It's going to give you your pressure and your temperature of each tire position. And if you were to go into alarm because you had an issue on a tire, it would alarm you audibly and visually, and it would tell you what tire is in alarm and what point of data is in alarm. So if it's like, hey, your front right tire is in alarm, and it's in alarm because you have low pressure, it would tell you that. And then you would know that, hey, I'm going to get off the road, go check that tire position. You may find you have a nail in it. So what did you just prevent? Well, if you wouldn't have been alarmed of that, then you prevented the inevitable blowout, right? And so that's why I love having a tire pressure monitoring system. I've always used one, and I would feel very uncomfortable at this point to not have one. And it will alarm you if you have pressure or temperature issues. So basically what a tire pressure monitoring system is, you'll have a sensor that screws onto each valve stem. Those sensors broadcast forward to a monitor that sits with you in your RV, gives you your pressure and your temperature. You set up parameters to where if you start to have an issue, it'll alarm you of that. And they're so simple. You have to do that initial programming. We have made videos, and we send an information guide out. If you end up getting one from TechnoRV, we would give you that information, make sure that you're successful with the system. And that is what a tire pressure monitoring system does there. And again, most blowouts preceded by low pressure, high temperature. Tire pressure monitoring system can alarm you of that. Hey, listen, everybody, I'm going to bring Jody back on board here. I did want to say thank you all for attending. We hope everybody has a good rest of the year. We hope to see a lot of you out on the road. And Jody, you there?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that was a lot of really good information. And I was taking notes over here myself. I usually tend to let my hubby Luke kind of manage the tire thing, but I definitely think I need to do a little bit better in helping that. And, you know, just us ourselves, my husband and I, we've been RVers for many years now. And like you guys, we've never rolled without a tire pressure monitoring system. It's just, we just don't feel comfortable without it. And it's saved us a couple times. We had a loose valve stem one time on our fifth wheel trailer. And, you know, if that would have gotten any crazier, then we could have had some trouble. And we, you know, were just running real hot one time doing some roads like this for a while, and the brakes got super warm and the tires were just warm. So we were like, we got to stop and cool everything down. So it's just peace of mind, you know, and that's what a lot of the RV technology products that you guys offer are. It's not necessarily something you have to be an RVer, but if you can, like I said, give yourself peace of mind and do things that are preventative to keep you from disaster, like you're just gonna be happier RVing, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you find yourself on the side of the road with a blowout, that's not really the time to be thinking about a tire pressure monitoring system. So it is one of those preventative things. You make a good point though with the temperature thing, because I talked about low pressure and just ambient temperature. The other thing that RVers can run into is they might have brakes that aren't fully releasing. They could have bearings that are become damaged and start heating up. A tire pressure monitoring system will sense those type things. So, you know, if you've got brakes locking up, you may not know it, but that's going to generate an enormous amount of heat on your tires, and that can also cause a blowout as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just lots of things. I mean, it's not a magician. It's not going to X-ray your tire and tell you every little thing about it, but it's definitely helpful. And one question we did have more specifically about the system is if the RVer has like a motorhome and they're towing a car behind it, can the sensors go and track everything, or is it just on one element that you're working with?
So the TST system can do as many tires as somebody has. It'll actually do over 100. It does have the range to do up to 100 feet, which is going to cover any RV. And yes, absolutely 100%. We always recommend, if you're in a motorhome towing a vehicle, monitoring the tires on that vehicle that you're towing is as important as monitoring the tires on the motorhome, because these motorhomes are so heavy that you can have a blowout on that tow vehicle. We hear these stories. You can have a blowout and you don't know it until somebody pulls up next to you and starts waving you down, telling you, hey, you got a blowout back here. And those are the situations that can be dangerous, because you can find yourself running on a rim, creating more damage for your car, and it could create other dangerous situations, including you know, fire and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. We always recommend that. And then if you're in a towable, so a fifth wheel or a bumper pull, of course you want to have sensors on the motorhome. And then in the vehicle that you're driving, say you're in a truck, the decision at that point is, hey, do I want to put sensors on the truck? A lot of new trucks might have a built-in system. A lot of people like to go ahead and put those TST sensors on the truck as well, just so they have it all in one place. And plus, a lot of these, the OEM stuff that comes in trucks, they don't monitor the temperature. So a lot of people like having both points of data and all in one location, so they'll end up covering it all.
Yeah, that's not going to hurt. And is there any kind of length limit? I'm pretty sure these systems work whether you're in a 19-foot travel trailer or a 40-foot motorhome with a vehicle on the back. It'll cover all of it, right?
Yeah, so all of these systems come with what's called a signal repeater, and these signal repeaters create a 100-foot boosted zone, and so you got 100 feet to work with. So that's going to be big enough for any RV. I mean, you could have a 45-foot RV and towing a Super Duty truck or something, and you're going to have plenty of space as far as signal's concerned.
Cool. Okay. And so when folks are at TechnoRV.com and they're looking through the TST tire pressure systems, basically they're kind of mostly like the only thing they have to decide is how many sensors they need based on the number of tires they want to cover. And then I think there's a couple other features to pick from, but it's not a confusing thing to shop for.
No, it's not. We've made it real easy. The other thing I did want to point out is TechnoRV does have a YouTube channel, and I do have a video where I walk through kind of that decision-making process. Again, it's not difficult, but there's just a few things that you have to consider. There's a couple of different sensor types that you'll need to choose from. But that decision-making process is super easy. You just got to answer a few questions, and it'll lead you to the right one. So somebody could always go to our YouTube channel and check those out. When you go to our site, we do have information guides. If you just go to TechnoRV.com, up top, there will be something that's called Learn Here. If you click on that, you'll see we've got all kinds of information guides, not just on tire safety and tire pressure monitoring, but these are guides we've written ourselves. And the one specifically on tire safety, tire pressure monitoring is all about, what it is, how it works, and helping you with those decisions.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. And we've got some more good questions coming in. Guys, I'm going to try to organize your questions. So we'll try to hit on all the tire pressure monitor system questions now. And then I know we have a couple other questions too on some other topics here. So if someone, if I get a new RV, can I transition my tire pressure system to my new RV?
Yes, absolutely. So these sensors basically just screw onto the valve stem. And so when you transition to another RV, you just unscrew it off and take it with you.
Yeah. And each sensor does have a battery. Is that correct, Eric? That will maybe need to be changed after so long?
Yes, each sensor comes with a user replaceable battery, so the batteries last about a year, and then you just change them out yourself. And RVers love the ability to be able to do that because the sensors will just keep running as long as you change the batteries out in them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Cool. When getting started with your tire pressure monitor system, for proper tire identification, is the initializing procedure technically involved? Darlene is wondering.
It's
and I think you guys have
sorry.
videos to help with that.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that one. Go ahead.
Sure. So once you get your TST system, is getting it set up with your, getting the right sensor with the right tire in your device, and then getting the right, low pressure, high pressure, things like that. How technically involved is setting up your device once you have it on your tire?
Got it. Okay, so when you get the system, yes, you do need to program each sensor into the monitor to tell it which tire you're putting the individual sensor on. So when you go into alarm, it'll be able to tell you which tire is in alarm. That process is super easy. Look, the TST system comes with a manual. One of the things that we do as a company with all of our products is we write our own instructions in easier to understand terms than oftentimes the manufacturer will write up. We also make videos. So with the TST system, when you order one from us, you'll automatically get an email that'll have a video showing you step by step of how to go in and program these things. In addition, we just want people to be successful with them. So we do all that, and we have very knowledgeable and educated employees at TechnoRV that will answer the phone Monday through Friday. And so if anybody ever had an issue or a question, they can just call in and talk to somebody, and we'll help them through it.
Cool. Yeah. And that's what I've always liked about you guys. Sometimes you might be able to find a better price somewhere else, but pretty rarely. You guys are super competitive, and oftentimes you're doing specials and things are cheaper anyway. But you guys, you can't call Amazon and ask for help, okay? They're not going to answer a phone. Where with TechnoRV, you can call, and the gals in the office are super nice. And if you happen to end up talking to Eric, you know from this presentation, you're just going to have a nice time. So
yeah, and I will say on the TST, just as a company has what's called minimum pricing, and so there's a level that you can't sell below, and we always just sell at whatever that minimum pricing is. So you won't find that product any cheaper anywhere, because we just sell the cheapest that we're allowed to sell from the manufacturer. That we just go straight there.
Sure, easier to do that way. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's see. James is wondering, can the TST system be used for multiple trailers? And so I'm guessing maybe if you would, maybe you've got, travel trailer A that you use for certain excursions, and maybe travel trailer B for something else, but trying to use one system. Yeah.
Yeah. So good question, and the answer is yes. So the TST can handle up to 4 different trailers. So you have a choice in that scenario. You can buy, say you have 2 trailers and they both have 4 tires. So you could buy 4 sensors and move those sensors from trailer to trailer, but then you would be reprogramming if the PSI was different, or you could just buy sensors for all of it and program them as different trailers. So yes, you absolutely can do that, and you are programming the pressures at what you want to be alarmed at based on different axles. So if somebody has like a tow dolly, and so you've got the tires of the tow dolly that are on the ground, and then you've got the back tires of your vehicle on the ground. All of those things can be programmed individually per axle. So it's a very flexible system. And but yes, to answer his questions, yes, you can do up to 4 different trailers.
Oh, wow. Okay, neat. Wow, that makes it really flexible. Okay. Let's see. Rick says, I installed a tire pressure monitor system on my 36-foot Class A. I installed the rear sensors on the hose extensions to the duals. Are those still okay for monitoring heat?
Okay.
Or
so
the
temperature is being recorded around that sensor. Okay. So it's not recording the temperature like inside the tire. It's around that sensor, and it is very sensitive. So I can be driving down the road and the sun can be coming in on one side of my RV, and I'll notice that the temperature on that side of my RV is higher than, say, the temperature on the other side. So it is very sensitive. With that said, it is going to be around that sensor. So if you've got an extension hose coming out, then people do this all the time, then it's going to be measuring the temperature around that. If you were to have a scenario where, say, the brakes were locking up or something like that, that's going to generate enough heat around that tire that will be picked up by that sensor, whether it's here or, say, 6 or 8 inches in. It's going to get hot enough to where it'll pick that up.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. And let's see, Ken is asking, are the tire pressure monitor systems a good idea for camper vans? I think they're a good idea for any vehicle you're driving on the road at any time. Well,
the passenger, car industry, or, they pretty much coming with them now. And so, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Jody. If it was me, any type of RV I'm in, if I had a truck camper, a camper van, or whatever, I'm going to want to know what's going on with my tires, even more so than a passenger vehicle, just because of the extra weight, all the stuff you have in there, and how it can really just mess up a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can prevent it, then you're going to want to prevent it, no matter what you're in.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, Rick's got more good questions here. What percentage should I set my alarms above the running pressure? He said he set mine at 15% and it still sets off an alarm on all my tires.
All right. Hey, Rick. Good question. So what we recommend is that you set the low pressure at about 10% below what your cold tire pressure should be in that tire. The high pressure should be at least 20%. I'm okay with going to 25%. Okay. So 15%, to me, that's not enough, because if you get into an area that and you have high ambient temperature, then you're probably going to be running into an alarm. The idea here is that you be alarmed for something that you need to be alarmed for. And what you don't want to be alarmed for is just a normal operating condition. And so 15%, to me, is not enough. I would bump that up to 20%. That's probably going to fix your problem. And depending on where you're at, if you're in some really hot environments, I'm okay with even bumping it up to 25%.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And just the more you do it and kind of play with it, you'll get to kind of feel what you like to be alarmed by and stuff like that. I know Luke suggested the percentages on ours before, and yeah, it's not necessarily you can adjust it. It's not like you set your monitor and that's what it has to stay at. You can play with it.
Yes, and I'm in a Class A now. Personally, I set mine at 25% above cold tire pressure.
Cool. Okay. Okay. And John is wondering if insurance companies give you a break on your premium if you have the tire pressure monitoring system installed.
Hey, John, you got me. I don't know. They should. They should. But you know what? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a great question.
I
should know the answer to this, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, they don't ask you for sure when you're signing up for it. And I don't. Hey, did you? I'll ask my husband here in a second. But let's get to another question first. He might remember. Let's see. Okay, I think that was all the tire pressure questions for the system.
Okay.
Tim did mention he got a tire pressure monitor system, and he was amazed to see the difference in the tire pressures once they hit the road. And it is interesting to watch it go, 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 go as you're cruising.
Yeah, it's all, and you know what, and you know why I love that? I love it because I do know the system's going to alarm me if there's a problem, but visually, I feel like I just know the tires, but I know what they're going to do. I know how they're going to react to certain conditions, and so it's another advantage of having the system.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, Marcia was wondering. She said 4 years ago she found a fist-sized bulge on a tire, and this year she had a broken belt, both on rear tires. It was on her fifth wheel. And would the tire pressure monitor system have detected either of those situations?
So, you know what? If the visual inspection is where you're going to pick that kind of thing up. So, if you've got a bulge in your tire, the tire pressure monitoring system is going to deal with pressure and temperature. So, if you have a bulge and it didn't affect those 2 points of data, then no, it's not going to tell you that. But you know, obviously, you found that from a visual inspection, so good job on that. And I would immediately take that to a tire professional and have them, which I assume you did, and have them inspect that. Any blemish, anything that you see on your tire that just doesn't look normal, you need to have a tire professional inspect it. But as far as the tire pressure monitoring system, probably not. I would doubt that just having a bulge is going to affect you know, that, unless there's a leak around it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's not, the tire pressure monitoring system doesn't mean that you don't have to do that nice list of preventative maintenance things that Eric gave us and told us we should be doing. So it's not a get out of chores free card.
Yeah, you gotta put your eyes on them. Yeah, and it sounds like she did, and that's good.
Yeah, Marsha's good. She likes to learn, and she applies what she learned. She's a good cookie, that one.
Good.
All right. Talking back about tires. So this is kind of back when we were talking about PSI, and you were showing us the pictures that showed the max cold PSI and things like that.
Okay.
So we had a couple questions coming in at that point. So and this one I'm not sure why is max dual load less than single load? Is that something you're familiar with? I don't know.
So here's the thing. When they set the inflation charts up, you'll notice that a dual load actually shows less per tire than a single tire does. But because you got two of them, the accumulation of both of them is actually more than the single. But the reason that they're less, believe it or not, has to do with the curvature of the road, right? They take this all into consideration. I actually had a slide that I talked about this and I took it out, but actually they take into consideration the what do they call it? Anyway, I'll just call it the curvature of the road. But the way roads are is they kind of slant down on one side, and so therefore the tires, because of that, are slightly, I guess, take the weight differently because of that. Some tires are actually taking more of the load than other tires because of the road curvature. And so they take that into consideration across the axle whenever they're setting those ratings up. So I wish I'd have had my PowerPoint slide in there. That would have solved that one.
Ernie was reading your mind, I guess. Yeah.
There's also a cool term for it, and it's not curvature of the road. I just can't think of it.
No worries. No worries. All right. Let's see. Do you know how old is too old for tires on a travel trailer? Is it typically still 5 to 7 years? Is that something that the tire safety website will tell us?
I should know that answer, and I'm gonna pass on giving a definitive answer on that one, because I would prefer that whoever asked that go pull the data sheet up on their particular make and model and make sure.
Right.
But typically, those tires are not going to last as long. Now, in a lot of cases, if you're running those tires, you will wear out those tires before you age them out, as opposed to a Class A, you'll age them out before you wear them out. But I would prefer that whoever asked that just pull the data sheet on their tire and see if they can find it on there for that specific tire.
Yeah, that makes sense too. There were a couple of you guys who were on with us who asked about some specific tires that you're running, maximum operating temperature, things like that. Those things can find via that website, or a more of a tire expert mechanic type person who's more familiar with all those ins and outs. Yeah. Okay. And James asked, and this probably does cause some confusion. If the sticker on my travel trailer says 50 PSI, but the max pressure on the tire is 65 PSI, if we haven't weighed our RV yet, should we inflate to 65, which is what the tire says?
Well, you don't want to be underinflated, and you get into this sometimes when tires start getting changed out on travel trailers, fifth wheels. You can see, people can start putting different tires on things. Generally the sticker on the vehicle is taking a lot of things into consideration, including the structure of the RV itself and all that weight. And so typically what we do tell people is that they definitely need to be looking at what that max pressure is on the tire, because again, tires can be changed out. And so if the sticker is based on a tire that was on a 15-year-old RV, and now that's not the tire you have on there anymore, then that can start to become a bit of an issue. I like people looking at the sidewall of the tire. Typically they'll line up pretty good with each other. Again, if you haven't been weighed, underinflation is worse than overinflation. If you're within 5 pounds on that sticker to the to what the tire says, I'm always going to err on the side of doing what's right as far as being overinflated as opposed to underinflated if you haven't been weighed. Cool. Now the technical answer is don't pay attention to either one of them and go get weighed.
Right. Yeah, and let's mention that too. So I mean, I know of two organizations that do that. One of them is Escapees RV Club. They have a program called Smart Weigh, So if you
Yes.
hop over to escapees.com, you can likely find information about that. I know they do weigh in at their live events when they're able to have their live events, and at some other locations. So you can, that's one service that'll offer it for you. Another is rvsafety.com. It's the RV Safety and Education Foundation, and they have weighing teams that travel to a lot of different RV events throughout the year. We do try to get them to our Workamper Rendezvous event that takes place in October in Arkansas, which we're hopefully going to have this year. Time will tell. So if you're going to an RV rally or other RV industry event, you may have the opportunity at one of those to get your RV weighed. And it's really a pretty quick process. You know, it depends on their day, how their day's lining up. But, you know, once it's your turn, it's maybe about 20 minutes or so, and they give you this sheet that they fill out and tell you all about it, what they think about it. And then at least with rvsafety.com, they have a phone number you can call to talk to someone who will further evaluate how things are going and what you need to do and look at. And I'm not sure what escapees cost, but I know rvsafety.com runs like 60 to 100 bucks. And it depends on your setup. If you're, you know, have a vehicle and a tow or towed, if you want all of that weighed together, that kind of depends, makes what the price is. So it's really not that expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did want to point out that if you check out our YouTube channel, I did make a video, or Tami and I made a video of us getting weighed.
Cool.
We did use the Escapee Smart Weigh team. They were spectacular, and that video goes through the whole process of showing me pulling the RV onto the scales and showing them talking to me about my weights on my RV and kind of how that whole process works. So if somebody wants to check that out, they can. The other thing I wanted to point out for everybody is in the articles section of TechnoRV, we do have an article on there that we provide the tire inflation chart links for most manufacturers. So if you're like, hey, I've got this particular brand, I don't know where the tire inflation chart is, we've probably got a link to it in that article.
Oh, wow. That's a really great resource. Okay, cool. Definitely something to check out. And yeah, so a couple questions, and we're going to try to wrap this up here in a little bit, guys, so we may not get to everybody's questions. But so where do you go to get weighed? That's going to kind of vary. Most of these folks will travel around, or escapees may have more solid locations you can go to, most likely in Texas.
I did want to point out one other thing. Obviously, the proper way to get weighed would be the RV Safety or the Smart Weigh team, because they're going to do it by tire. The second best thing to not getting weighed at all, which is the worst option of all of them, is you can go to a truck stop and pull onto one of the cat scales. Now most of those are going to weigh you across an axle, and that will at least start getting you in the ballpark of kind of what needs to happen there, and make sure that even your gross vehicle weight ratings and all that. Now we're just talking about it aside from the tires. You know, you do need to know what you weigh to make sure you're not overloading other parts of your RV, including the axle and things like that. But you can go to a cat scale at a truck stop, pull onto those and get a printout. Again, it's not going to give you that per tire position. You still need to do that, but it would be the next best thing.
Yeah, definitely. And when you do get your RV weighed, I believe what's most often recommended is you want to have it weighed with your stuff in it. So, you know, you're going out on a trip. How do you normally live in your RV when you're living in it? You know, if you're full timers, you're likely already there. Everything's already in it. It is what it is. But for part-time RVers, like, you know, put your stuff in there, pretend you're going on a trip, and get it in there. You don't want it to necessarily be empty, because it, you know, putting all your clothes in your clothes closet, that's obviously gonna weigh down that closet more than with it being empty. So I think that's what they usually recommend, is to have your stuff in it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and let's just hit a couple questions here about parking for long-term. Parking on gravel, should we use protectors? I think the concern is more with the concrete and the asphalt, isn't it?
Yeah, gravel. Yeah, you're good on gravel.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then someone asked about, do you know about brick pavers, parking on brick pavers, if that type of material is problematic for tires?
I'm not 100% sure, but I will say that for me, if I'm going to be parking for long periods of time, I just find it easy enough just to pull up, slip that mat under the tires, and just pull onto it, and that way you know for sure. You know, the proper way to store an RV. Of course, this is getting into a whole other topic. I'll make it real brief.
I know, right?
Is to make sure that you get as much weight out as you can of the RV whenever you store it. The proper way, of course, is what nobody would ever do, and that would be to actually put the RV up on blocks and take the tires off and put them in these special bags.
Right.
But nobody's going to do that, right? But
oh man. Yeah.
But getting a lot of the weight off of the tires for, if it's going to be sitting there for long periods of time, not in use, would be, and then making sure the tires are properly aired before you leave it there for long periods of time is a good idea.
Okay. Awesome. All right. And one quick clarification here. I just wanted to make, if Michael had this question, maybe someone else would have this question. With the tire pressure monitoring system, he's saying, so if I have extensions on dual tires on his Class A, he's saying, so the monitor wouldn't read the inside tire. Is that right? But I think no, I think the system will read it, won't it?
Yeah. Hey, Michael. So it's certainly going to be taking the pressure reading, because you're going to have that sensor on that particular valve stem, and that will be the pressure for that inside tire. Depending on where the end of that valve stem terminates, that is going to be where the temperature reading is taken, because again, it's not taking the temperature of the inside of the air of the tire. It's just around wherever that sensor is.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So it'll still be working for you on that inside tire. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Extension or not. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys. Those were some great questions.
Yeah.
Generated. Yeah. By some great information. And so everybody be sure to visit TechnoRV.com. And we did have a couple folks ask, do you guys have any plans for this year? What events you guys are thinking about doing in the future, maybe even next year at this rate?
So yeah, I will. We always start the year off at the Tampa RV show, so you can always catch us there. We always usually do the Hershey RV show in September. That one is still on right now, but I think they're still trying to make some decisions on that. Then throughout the year, we'll usually do a few like owners groups type rallies. This year, yeah, it's kind of a little bit different this year. We are scheduled to be at the Forest River Rally. TechnoRV is. I'm not sure if me and Tami will physically be there, but TechnoRV will be represented, and then
cool.
and then the Hershey show. So on our site, you can check out where would that be? I think it's under the About Us section. I think is where we have our rallies at.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. All right. Well, we definitely appreciate your time today and your information, Eric. It's been a pleasure having you on with us.
Hey, thanks, Workampers. Thank y'all for having me.
All right. Well, thanks so much again, Eric, and everybody for joining us today. And hopefully you all will have much safer travels now that we've learned so much about our RV tires. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care, Eric.
Bye.